I haven't done one of these talking videos in a very long time, so maybe let me get a coffee. And we can begin. Is genre the responsibility of the writer or the reader? If you're a writer or someone that's aspiring to become one, there's one question that you're going to receive over and over again, and it might just cause you to crash out. And that question is, what genre do you write in?
Wow, that's a great question.
It's become abundantly clear that genre is indeed a funny little concept. On the one hand, it does help readers find more of the stories that they already love. It helps publishers to also plan marketing strategies with these preset categories that essentially do all the work for them. Because once readers say, hey, I really like these kinds of books, then publishers can continue to feed them that. It's your basic mechanics of supply and demand.
I mean, simple mathematics.
But for the creators, the writers, the artists, the storytellers, genre can start to feel a bit like a cage, a narrowing, a tunnel that the more you're asked to focus on the walls closing in, the less light that you see at the end of it. Suddenly, you're not just writing a story, you're writing in a genre, one that already exists with its own tropes and expectations and rules that you're being asked to follow. And then that makes me think, how many stories didn't make it to shelves, not because they weren't good, but because they didn't fit neatly into a box? How many stories never even make it to the page because writers feel hemmed in before they've even written a single word? For those of you who are new here, my name is Dominique. I am a fiction writer, and this is my space for documenting my journey to becoming a published author. After releasing episode 1 of my short story series, The Townsend Farms and Chronicles. If you haven't read it, the link for my Substack is down below, so you can go and check that out. I had to swap my writer hat from my marketing hat so that I could find the proper avenues for promoting the story. While I want the time and the space to write more than anything, I also want to be read. And that means I have to spend just as much time and effort on sharing my work and labeling it so that readers can find it. But what label fits? What tag actually describes this story and all of the other stories that I intend to write? You know, like what's the actual packaging that I need to develop for a bibliography that hasn't been built yet?
Well, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here.
Not to be that girl, and perhaps you already know this, but technically there are only 5 genres. There is fiction, nonfiction, poetry, prose, and drama. Everything else, fantasy, romance, crime, mystery, is a subgenre. It's a category, it's a shelf label. And that's probably why I get so frustrated, especially after saying I'm a fiction writer, when people ask me still, what genre do you write in? Because technically, when I say I'm a fiction writer, that should be it. Because to me, it's just that. I write fiction.
Period!
Even if I say I'm a contemporary or realistic fiction writer, that should be enough, right? Unfortunately, it is not. And why not? Because of the algorithm.
Man, I cannot catch a break.
The digital one and the analog one already baked into our culture. The ones that already existed before we even logged on to the internet. The algorithm that pressures us to feed audiences familiar tropes and themes and narratives if we want them to care, if we want them to pay attention and to pay coins. And that inevitably leads us to the bread and butter of the propaganda machine, identity politics. For some of us, our work gets to come to the function, enter the conversation, arms swinging, and just have a merry good time. For the rest of us, we dare not enter the function empty-handed. We have to come in carrying our race, our community, our gender, our sexuality. Before we even have a conversation, we have to announce all of who we are in order for the audience to filter our words accordingly. In one recent interaction that I had, I couldn't help but think that this incessant probing was for me to inevitably say that I write African-American women's literature, like explicitly. Once we got past the fact that I don't write fantasy, I don't write romance, it was like, then what do you write about? Gender, race? Like, which shelf am I gonna put you on? I've even noticed it on the shelves that readers curate for themselves on places like Goodreads, for example, and the tags that are used on Substack and TikTok and Audible. So many of the genre labels for any author who isn't white or male end up being about gender, race, or sexuality, even when the centrality of the story is about friendship or memory or community. And I get it, there's a need for distinguishing and promoting underrepresented voices. There is value in that. But at a certain point, the way that we label these voices becomes a bit more marginalizing than it is inclusive. I imagine for some marginalized authors who are already established, it's pretty hard to not feel boxed in or worse, shut out of certain literary conversations. To not be questioned about your literary imagination, but about what your work is meant to say for the community that you represent. Okay, I mean, like, close your eyes and imagine an author like George Saunders or Amor Towles, and you see their titles on a shelf, and the shelf is labeled white male fiction, which I know a lot of you are going to say that's essentially all of literature anyway, but it is an absurd concept that they get to assume the default, and then everyone is still having to represent themselves as this sociological experiment instead of based off the literary merit that they're offering to the conversation. I mean, it's absolutely already a given that I'm going to bring my Black womanhood. I'm the child of immigrants. I lived in the North and the South of America. I code switch all the time, as you guys have probably seen by my multiple accents that come out in any given sentence. So I'm going to bring all of my experience with me to my work. And I'm not trying to deny that whatsoever, but it's just that it's not all of my work. It's not the entire literary experience. And I would just like to be afforded the space to write out my stories before they're stamped with a label of, this is a story about race, or this is a story about gender. Eventually, you can say that if you want to, but beforehand, it's a story about whatever it is that I'm thematically exploring. It's about so much more than the sociology, and I deserve to give myself permission in these early stages of learning craft and of developing my stories to just allow them to be whatever they are before I force them into a cage. I just need them to live out in the wild a little bit, and then to tell me what they are, to tell readers what they are before I'm the one that's just you have to be this. Now back to the genre of it all, because there is something to be said about the subgenre of fantasy, which has to have the best PR campaign of all time. They've got dark, high, urban, romanticy.
Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, dogs, chicken, turkeys, rabbits, you name it!
There are thousands of writers in the subgenre, filling it with 11 titles every year. And it seems like all readers or would-be readers are only checking for this genre, just looking for more of this to feed their reading habits. And it's a bit discouraging because when I look at my works in progress, and there's no smut, there's no dragons, there's no wizards.
Boring.
No. I write fiction, and that is my starting point. And I guess I just worry that there's not going to be a ladder for me to climb up onto any shelf. When we reduce craft and storytelling to subgenres and tropes, we're essentially clipping the wings of the dynamic stories that would be told, especially for us fiction writers who are just starting out. Being flooded with demands of defining our stories before they've even manifested feels quite counterproductive to the artistry of it all. Great stories blend genres. They defy category. But I can't help but think that the way we're reading and being asked to write is changing. We're cherry picking parts of stories until our literary palates can't handle more than one flavor at a time. We're asking aspiring writers to tell us what shelves they're going to be on before they've even finished their work. It's robbing us of the thrill of discovery. And that's why I think that genres could have been a scheme that Todd set up to come to you with the... I'm not anti-genre or anything like that, by the way. I really do understand that shelving and organization systems are actually quite necessary, especially when you have a lot of something and you just want to establish some order. But I do believe that genre is the reader's system and not the writer's strategy. If we've learned anything from Kafka and Dickens and Faulkner, it's that genre comes after the work and not before. Maybe we've merged art and business so much that it's to our detriment now because writers are expected to be so many more things, marketer and algorithm whisperer, and to know so much about the packaging instead of just focused on making their story the best that it's supposed to be. Especially in traditional publishing where you're expected to sell yourself before they're willing to sell your story. I just hope that I have the stamina and the fortitude to continue to write without all of that noise, to allow my stories to just be what they are and to finish them before I've, started pinning them down. And then when the time comes, the readers can shelve them however they want to, because at that point, it is all yours. Let me know what you think. Do you think that writers are obliged to know their subgenres before they put pen to paper? Maybe you think that subgenres are quintessential to the literary experience, or maybe you just want to annihilate shelving altogether because you want to throw caution to the wind. Whatever it is, let us know down below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and consider watching this video next. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.